So we are going to learn how to use the command line to manage databases. That is, we are going to create a database, we are going to create tables, we are going to update tables, and we are going to try and insert some records into our tables. So once you install your MySQL workbench and you've created a connection, for example, me, I have two connections. I have new and my new. So that is where I'll use those are my root servers where my databases and everything will be stored. So to use the command line to create a database, so we'll just start by and search. So when you install your MySQL workbench, it comes with a command line client. So this is my command line client. When you if you want to, you can just type in on the search button for MySQL command line client, then you'll see it. So then once you created your remember you started first by creating your local servers and local connections. So once you remember, when you are creating your local connection, you had some bit for password. So you enter that password. Remember, you have to know the password for your database, the one that you used to create your local connection. So I would just go in and key in my password there. Then it welcomes you to a command line. And remember, commands, if you read the first statement, welcome to MySQL monitor, commands end with a semicolon or /g. So we will always use the semicolon to end our statement. So I want you to, once you open this page, the first thing that you have to know is the number of databases that are already there. So to do this, you use a show databases command to to get the databases that are already here. So you use show databases. So when you type that, it shows you that already these are the existing databases. So I have hospitals, my information schema, MySQL, performance schema, students, Seas, Vikings, and World as my databases. So to create a new database, I want us to use a command known as create database. That's just a simple English like that. You would create a new database. So create database. Let's say I want to create a new database called clinic. Okay. So I want to create a new database called clinic, and remember, you have to end it with a semicolon. So create a database clinic query. Okay, rows affected 0 0.1 second. So that database has already created. Now if I go in and type databases show databases, you see clinic appears as one of my databases. So a database is just an empty store without a table. So remember, you have to have a table in a database for it to work. Okay. So for us to create a table in a database, or in our database called clinic, we have to use that database. We will have to put it forward. So to put a database forward to use it, we use the use command. So use a clinic. I don't know if you're able to see that. Use clinic. Remember, our clinic has a capital C. Oh, it doesn't have a capital C. So use clinic. So database has been changed and now we are using clinic. So we want to create a table in the database clinic. And remember, a table is an entity with rows and columns. So a table has to have at least one column to be called a table. So create, let's say create table patients. So let us create table patients, and this table must have rows and columns. So patients, let me just push it up a bit. So create patients, and this patient, we need to have the first row as patient ID, and this ID should be an integer, and let's give it a value there, an integer, and then we are saying that it's not null. The reason we are saying it's not null, so that this column does not accept null values. So now I'm not going to use a semicolon yet because I want to still add other columns. Instead, I'm going to use a comma. So if you want to add other columns still, you are going to use comma. Where I put a comma, then enter, and then I say patient name or just name. Then name is now a string. So a string is stored in database as varchar. So varchar, let's give it a value, and name is, because names are longer, let's give it a value of 50 and so on. Then we say not null also. Remember, we are saying not null so that we don't dim or we don't store null values here. So then that is our second column. The third column, we still press enter, we give it maybe gender, and gender still is a varchar, is a string. Then we give it maybe a string, still 50, but we could give it less because gender is male, female, not null. Then we can just also store age. Remember, age is now an integer. Now it's because it's smaller, we give it a smaller value. So an integer, let's say still 15, is because that's still a small value. And then we say also not null. The reason why I always consider not null values, that so that my columns don't accept null values. You can as well leave it at 50 at varchar, 50, 15, 15, but then if you use null, it's actually better. So remember, this is our last column in the table. So at the last column, now you don't put a comma, but you close the quotes, you close the bracket. Remember, we began by opening the bracket, then you place your semicolon. So create table patients, you open the bracket. ID, because ID is an integer, we've given it a value of 15 and we've said we are not going to accept null values. The second column, we have said we are going to give it a name, and because name is a string, we give it a varchar, and this varchar we are going to we give it a value of 50. You can give it a value of 100. You can give it a value of 30, the way you want, based on the number of values in the string that you want to accept. We've given a gender. Gender also is a string, so we use varchar, and we've given it 50, not null. And finally, we've used aged. We've declared a column age, and age is an integer. Integer is a number, and we are now a whole number. Integer is a whole number. We will see those other data types, that decimals and so on. So we'll see how they are called, but now for now, integer is a whole number, and we are saying the value is 15, and again, it's not null. Now remember, at the last column, I have closed the bracket the way I opened when creating table patients, and then now you press enter, you see query okay and so on. So then I want to show to describe my table. So I want to describing table means that you want to show the value, the columns that the table has, and you want to show their the values that you've added to the column. So describe, let's say describe describe what was the table name? Describe patients. Then we place a semicolon. So look at my columns. My column is ID, name, gender, age, and so on. So at this moment, I have not input any data into my respective column. So to insert data into the current table, we'll use the insert into function. So we say insert into remember our table name was patient, so insert into patients. So then you open the bracket, then you state the columns that you want to insert data into. So for example, ID, name, then gender, then finally age. Remember, all the column names have to appear the way they appear, the way you describe them in the first step. So ID has everything in caps, name has the N in caps, gender has the G in caps, and age has everything in small letters. So insert into patients, ID, comma, name, comma, gender, comma, age. Then we can press enter just to jump into the next line. So insert into patient's ID, name, age, name, gender, age, and then in the second line you say values that you want to insert into that table. So we say values, then bracket, our first value may be ID 001, comma, then name. So when you are inserting values that are string in nature, the varchar values, you use single quotes. So you press single quotes. Let's say the name there is Jane Jane Smith. So then after that you place a comma. Jane Smith, gender of Jane is female, and remember gender is also a varchar, so we use a single quote. So gender there is female. Then of course the last one is to insert the age, and the age maybe age is 22. Then I close the bracket. Then remember at the very beginning we said that every function has to end with a semicolon, so we place a semicolon at the end of it all. So this is our SQL statement: insert into table name, and the table name is patients, and then the values are ID, name, gender, and age. Those are the columns. Then values are 001, Jane Smith is a female, and the age is 22. So when you press enter, our query is okay. So we can now select everything to show you if that has if we have really inserted that value. We can just select the table to show to see if that data has been inserted into the table. So to select the table, we use the select star. Select star means you select everything. So select star or select all from patients. To select everything from patients, you can see our value there is the first value there is Jane Smith, and Jane Smith is a patient, is a female, and the age is 22. So let's try to insert another value into our table. So we want to insert another record there. So we say insert into patients. You can just click the up arrow to retrieve that part of the statement. So insert into patients, and then we can say values. So we want to add another patient, let's say 02, and then the first value, remember, is a varchar. We use a single quote. Let's say Nick, and Nick now is a male. Single quote, not double quotes. Nick is a male, and of course Nick is 30 years. So then we close the bracket and we place a semicolon. Then it's okay. So now when we select everything, we want to see what happens.